Tzarech Lahavin.
Okay.
No, no, the other way.
All right.
Okay, so we're learning the Maimer Basi Lagani, Tafshin Mem Gimmel. We're holding on page, the old print, page 881, B'tzarech Lahavin. So we said the first few lines last week. We'll start again from the beginning of the Siv. Tzarech Lahavin thereby asks, why is it that the Mamorim of Chassidus explained the Maimer and this Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, U'ba'id Mamorim, and in other places? The idea that the light of Hashem lowers itself and descends so low until it comes down into klippus, and it's explained with such great detail all the various different levels of klippus and just how low they are. Eitz Chaim is a sefer of Kabbalah from the Talmidim of the Arizal. So this is in the Kabbalah of the Arizal. Karev l'sefer towards the end. Shnei sha'arim. There's two sections, two gates. Hamavarim pratei adargis the klippus, which describe the various detailed levels of klippus. The Gam Lifnei Zeh, and also before, right? Because the Arizal was there, 500 years ago. The Zeh is stuff from the Rashbi, just after the Churban. The Gam Lifnei Zeh Bezer became Mekemis Befrat Beparshas Pikudei Mavur Barichas Kedele Beprati Prati Sinim Elu, and even before then in Zeh we have long explanations getting into all the various details of all of the klippas. And L'chora, what's the need for the Torah to discuss all of this not good, all of this evil, all of this sitra achra? The Shleimer Abir B'zeh, so the Rebbe starts first with one beer. By the time we're finished in Mitzvah Hashem, on the next page towards the bottom, the Rebbe wants to do for us is the Rebbe wants to give us a different view of what does it mean klippus, how we're supposed to perceive it, how we're supposed to approach it, and how we're supposed to feel about it, and therefore how we're supposed to deal with it. So the Rebbe starts first at the beginning. First of all, you should know like this. Shleimer. Since the creation and the existence of the world, with everything that's in it, to the last detail, you can't find anything in the world that exists without it having come from the Torah. Everything came istakel b'raisa bara alma, that the Eibishter looked in the Torah, and through the Torah he created the world. Lachein b'chdei shiyuchal leisis havas kol pratei dargis tlumas ekfi she'ala b'ritzenis barach mitam mitzat tam hakomas lefana bisbar, in order that he should be able to be the creation of all of the various different levels of lumas of klippus, as the Eibishter desired for a hidden reason that only he knows. So tzrichim tchila, if you want to have those klippus, and everything that's created came from the Torah, so tzrichim tchila, lias inyanim eila b'chol hapratim b'Torah. All of these inyanim of klippus, with all of their details, have to be written down in Torah, in Kabbalah and in Chassidus. Through this, that the Eibishter looks in Torah, looks in Kabbalah, looks in Chassidus, and he sees it there. So through that, Nivra Mitziyusam Ba'ilam, that's how their existence was created here in this world.
So in other words, if it doesn't say all these details, they wouldn't be around.
They wouldn't exist. The only thing that could exist in the world is things that are written in Torah. So this already begins on a minor level to change our view of what we see in the world. In other words, you walk around and you see things that are a challenge and that oppose Torah and Yiddishkeit and the Eibishter. So how does the person feel about those things? What are those things? Those things are very terrible things, and those things are very unpleasant things, and they're very bad. And that's where it stays. You have nothing more to do with it other than to say this is very bad. It's a problem. It's something that makes me feel not good. With this little bit of information, so we don't have to stop there. We could say, yes, it's very bad, it's very not good, we don't like it, it makes me problems, it makes me trouble, but it doesn't stop there. You say, I know in truth it has its source, it came from Torah. Somehow, one way or another, it came from Torah. So this thing itself can't already be such a big, powerful force. If its whole existence came from Torah, how much could it oppose Torah already? Maybe it looks like it opposes Torah. Maybe it creates, it's not an insurmountable challenge anymore. It's something that could be dealt with. If its existence comes from Torah, then certainly either sooner or later, it's going to be something that ends up helping Torah. So that's already a shift in how we could relate to the problems that we face in our Aveda as Yidden. And like the Rebbe says, this includes all of the klippas going down to the very lowliest ones, the most disgusting ones included. They're all there because one way or another, in some way that we don't understand yet, they're going to lead to Torah. And now Rebbe adds another layer, a much deeper understanding to it. Rebbe says on a deeper level, we could say, the Mashim of Torah called Prater Dagas Tulumazeh, Loy Rak Bichtei Shal Dezi Yuchal Esi Savusim Kanal, Elegam Bichtei Shtushlam Kavana Si Savus. This, the details of all of the klippas are written down in Torah. It's not only so that they could be created, but rather it's in order so that the purpose for which they were created can be fulfilled.
So that is not to do it.
Oh, so where we're holding right now, that the most you have is, let's see what the Rebbe says. But very good. But you touched exactly on the point. If the Rebbe stopped over here and didn't continue, so the most we would be able to see in the klippas, the most we would be able to relate to it in a positive way is to say, instead of looking at this as something that's destroying me, I'm going to look at it as an opportunity to listen to Hashem and not do what the klippas want me to do. So it's already a shift. We no longer we no longer view the klippas as an independent force, as a force that's there only to cause us to do averis. Instead, we start to view the klippas as a force that leads to Torah somehow, but not the klippa itself. Rather, how, like you said, by not doing it, I'll come closer to Torah. But the klippa itself remains the ugly thing that it is. But over here, the Rebbe adds a word. He says that there's a purpose in their creation. Dini Amra Azal, Kol Ma Shabara Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olam Lebraya Lelichvede. Everything that the Eibishter created in his world, he created it only for his glory. Even the Shmutz. You say Kol Ma, the Chazal didn't make a qualification. Say Kol Ma Shabara Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olam. So you can't just teach that the Eibishter created it in order that it should lead later to his kavod. That's not the Maimer Chazal. It says that this thing, the Eibishter created it for his glory. Wow, this is one of those Mamar Chazal that if we succeed in connecting to it and thinking about it and putting it in our mind, it has the potential to change our entire view of reality. When a person, it's a sikh of Deba, so I can't remember where the sikh is, but Deba really brings out this point in a very clear and beautiful way. That if you understand, if you get it into your head, that Kol Ma Shabara Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olam Lebraya Lelichvede. So therefore, everything you see, you start wondering, how could I use this to serve Hashem? How could I use this to serve Hashem? Because you know for a fact, it's only here to serve the Eibishter. The only question that's left is, how am I supposed to use it? You're not coming to reinvent it. You're not coming to recreate it, to change it. You have a simple question. I know for sure that it was created for the Eibishter's kavod. So therefore, automatically, when I see it, the only thing that's in my head is, how am I going to use this to help me serve the Eibishter? So the only question is how. It's no longer an if. It's no longer optional. Every detail, and this is true, and I think it makes the biggest shift in Yonir Shos L'chora. When it comes to matters of Torah and mitzvahs, and we understand that we're supposed to do that. When it comes to matters of Averis, we understand that we're not supposed to do that. However, when it comes to Yonir Shos, everything else that's in between, and because of the way the Eibishter set up the world, Sheishes Yamim Tavid, so in the best case, you have a ratio of 1 to 6. Yeah, one day you have Shabbos La Hashem, 6 days, right? Afilu Perek Echad Shachas, Perek Echad Arvis. The Eibishter didn't put us in a situation where we could deal in Torah mitzvahs the whole day. Ev explains it, including in this Maimer. We'll see later in the Maimer how this is all part of the Eibishter's plan that we should have to do with the Yonir Rishus most of the time. So it's in that area where this point of view of Kol Ma Shabara Kadosh Baruch Hu Ba'olam Lebraya Lelichvede, if we really internalize that and make it our default way of relating to reality, it could possibly bring about a whole change to an entire person's experience in this world. Because everything that he sees, it's for the Eibishter's glory. This thing, my house, my business, my vacation, my food, my speaking to my friends themselves, everything is part of serving the Eibishter. That's for a different time. Hopefully I'll find that sikha, maybe we'll learn it. What we need to find over here is we need to understand how are the klippas themselves created for the glory of the Eibishter. In other words, not only to lead us to serving the Eibishter, but the klipa itself is created for the glory of the Eibishter. How does that work? So it says like this. The Baal Shem Tov is doch a Basi Legani Maimer, where the Rebbe mentions all the Rebbeim, including the Baal Shem Tov and the Magid. So like the Baal Shem Tov says, Al Pasuk Sur Min Avasei Tov, that you're supposed to stay away from bad and do good. So what's the literal taich? There's two different Avedas, right? And that's how we raise our children. That's how we start from the beginning. We teach them there's two things, there's two components to the general picture of serving the Eibishter. One of them is don't do evil, and the other one is do good. Right? There's a oath that the doctors take or used to take. It's called. Now, I don't know if it's in that oath. Maybe it is. It's an oath the doctors take. Either that or it's just the saying that people say. But the first thing that you tell a doctor is don't do harm. You're coming, you're going to operate on the person. The first thing you tell a doctor before you're all gung ho, and say, oh, I'm a doctor and I'm so educated and I have, such a menu of hundreds and thousands of different chemical compounds, different medicines, and different surgeries and procedures that I could do on the patient. You say, wait a second. First of all, make sure whatever you're doing, you're not harming the patient. If you're sure you're not harming the patient, then see if you can find a way to help him. So you think that there's two separate things. There's sur meira. Another way of saying if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah. Don't do bad. And then there's a separate department of asay tov. The Baal Shem Tov teaches al pi primis hanyonim know that it's all one aveda. That the aveda really is shemeira yasa tov. Sur meira asay tov means asay tov from the ra. Take away the bad that's in the ra. And turn it into good. It says in the pasuk, it seems like it is an independent thing. Go away from it. It says that's only in the beginning of the Aveda. You can't transform bad into good if you're in love with the bad. If you're in love with the evil and with the bad, then you have to do with it. It's going to get you every time. The person is going to become a neifel. We'll see later in the Rebbe's Maimon says a beautiful thing about how a person could protect himself to make sure that he doesn't get done in by the bad. But the first thing is teach yourself that the bad is your enemy. Surmeira. Once you do that first step, so now you could start the second part of the Aveda of actually transforming it into good. Because when you have to do with the bad, it's not gonna trap you. I'm a slave with Aveda, but what's the highest level of Aveda that a person is supposed to reach? And how do you complete the Aveda for which you were created? Is to make, in other words, to transform the bad into good, turn the bad itself into good. So here we have the primary idea that the rest of the Maimer is based on, that the Aveda is not only, like you said before, which is mentioned in many places, and not only, like you said before, Tchilas Aveda of Sur Meirav, staying away from the bad, that what's the idea of klippus? They should be able to serve the Eibishter by staying away from it. That's one thing. However, there's a much deeper aspect, and this is truly the shlemus of it. And only with this could we really understand why the Eibishter created so much of it, and why he wrote it in his Torah, and why he makes us have to do so much with it, why we find most of our life we're busy with it. You would think that if the whole purpose is to not do it, then we should find ourselves, having this challenge much less. Every once in a while you have the challenge. You see, did I do it? Did I not do it? Oh, I didn't do it. Okay, I'm ready to move on and go back to what life is really about. But that's not the way it works. Day after day, hour after hour, we're challenged in ways that are nearly impossible for us to overcome. So so what's that all about? It's only so I should stay away from it. Okay, so why does it have to be the whole time constant? Why does it have to be everywhere? The reason is because there's actually this idea of changing from the bad into good that Deb's going to expand upon further in the Maimer as we move along. So if the idea is that the Eibishter wants us to transform bad into good, so now I can start to understand why I have to do so much with the bad. Because the Eibishter needs me to transform this bad into good. And that's why day after day, I'm busy dealing with challenges and with failures and with this and with the misery of the life of a person who has to deal with the klippus and Elam Hazim. So let's see. There are details at length. However, the first thing that we have to know is if we want to change bad into good, it has to be possible, right? In other words, if some we don't have the power to change anything into something that it's not. Only the Abishta has the power to do that. If it's clippus, how are we supposed to change it, right? I can't change a table at the Sechveisvas, I can't change wood into a diamond. If I was able to, I would have a nice living.
You wouldn't have to work.
I wouldn't have to work. The new Nishana B'Tachon, he starts off with the how do you say it? The
Alchemist.
alchemists.
Yeah, but it's baloney. It doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. In the olden days, though, it was very
tried,
popular.
but it's Mishigas.
It's mishagas because they didn't understand that they didn't know about the periodic table. They didn't know about they didn't understand things on an atomic level.
Right.
So they thought that you can mix different metals, and if you mix them just in the right ratio and under the right temperatures and in the right ways, you're going to be able to change. You're going to be able to create gold. About the Kuda is that this idea that you can't change something. We're not creators. We're not the Eibishter.
Right.
We can't turn things into what they're not.
Right.
So what does this mean? That we're supposed to transform the bad into good.
If it's bad, how can we change it to good?
Simply stated. Thank you. Simple and to the point. If it's bad, how can we change it to good? So he explains, in order that we should be able to refine the bad, even the worst of the bad. And change it into good. This is through this that all of the details of klippos are actually written in Torah. So if they're actually written in Torah, what's their true existence? Their true existence comes from Torah. If their true existence comes from Torah, they don't have an independent true reality.
Right.
If they had an independent true reality as bad, then that is what they are, and we can't change it.
Right.
But since the source of their reality actually comes from Torah, so therefore we can change it. Well, the Torah of the Torah of the Mizitcha Magid on the Pasuk, in the beginning of Pashas Bay. David tells Pare, Baal Pare, Kenich Batlis Libes Lebavodov, Laman Shisi, Isaisa Ela Bikirba, in order so that I could bring upon them my wonders, my signs. David says, I will place my signs, which in other words are the Abishter's Nisim, in Mitzrayim. And the Mizitcha Magid explains, the Isaisa Hema Asius Venitzaitzes Shanafla al Deini to be Mitzrayim. Right, the literal title of the pasuk is Isaisa means the markers basically, but the Mizitcha Magid touches it differently. He says there's Isaisa, there are Asias, there are letters. In other words, letters of the Aleph base, which are halakite, and these represent the Nitzaitzes, the sparks. Shanaflu al Deini to be Mitzrayim. These sparks fell and got trapped in Mitzrayim. Nevertheless, even though they fell down into Mitzrayim, they are still the Eibishter's Nitzaitzes. The Rebbe says a very geschmacka point over here. The fact that the sparks fell so low to the extent that they were trapped in the clip of Mitzrayim, this actually teaches us and indicates to us that in their source, these sparks have a very high source. The way they were actualized, the way they came into reality, they came as something very low. They became part of the clip of Mitzrayim. But in their source, they're actually very high. How do we know that? The higher something is, when it falls, it falls much lower. So if we see that there are sparks in Mitzrayim. In other words, they descended not stam into Elam Haza, and not stam further down into Klippos, but they descended down into the lowest of Klippos, into the Klippa of Mitzrayim. So we know that these sparks come from a very high source. They're the sparks of the Eibishter, and in there it's up from a very high source. And what does the Eibishter want? In order to refine and to fix these Asias, that what she always say shali begilui, that also in their revealed incarnation, in their revealed manifestation, they should also be the Eibishtes. In other words, we shouldn't only say that in their source they're Kedusha, but the way they're manifest in this world, they're manifest as Klippus. We want also the way they're manifest in a revealed and simple way in this world, Begilui, that they should belong to the Eibishter. Therefore, the Eibishter placed these words of those psukim and these letters into the Torah, which through this we're able to refine these letters. So why does it say, what is the Pirush HaPnimi of Laman Shisi Eisaisa Ela Bekiva according to the Mitzvah Magid? That why does the Eivishter want these psukim to be in the Torah in order so that we should be able to refine them? Refine the Asias, the Klippus that are in Mitzrayim. V'zo Laman Shisi Eisaisa Ela Bekiva, the Eisaisa Ela Koiva Pashtus Al Gimmel Makas Acharenis. What are these signs that the Eibishter is talking about in this pasuk? It's talking about the last three makkos that the Eibishter brought on Mitzrayim. Because we're in Parshas Boi. In Parshas Ve'era we had the first 7 makkos. And then we have a strange pasuk, right? The beginning of Parshas Boi. There might be a hidden question over here. It's a strange pasuk. Boyel Pare. The Eibishter tells Moshe Rabbeinu, Boyel Pare, come to Pare. Kanich badati his liba v'eslev avodav. Because I hardened his heart and the heart of his servants. Why? What's the whole reason? So that I could bring these makkos on them. It's a strange thing. It's a strange reason to give.
Yes.
You're doing it just so you could bring the makkos. Don't do it. You won't have to bring the makkos, and the Yidden could leave Mitzrayim, and that's the end of the story. It's a strange thing. Make me trouble so I could punish them. So, does that make any sense? And of course, the Eibishter didn't want the Yidden to remain in Mitzrayim an extra second. So what's he keeping the Yidden in Mitzrayim? Just so he could bring makkos? Because the Eibishter wants to bring makkos on the Mitzrayim, we have to suffer and stay in Mitzrayim and Golus. It's a strange thing.
But the Shibud, okay, the Shibud was way already.
So should have said in the pasuk that the Shibud wasn't finished yet. That's not what the pasuk says. The pasuk doesn't say I hardened his heart because it's not time yet for you to leave. No, the pasuk says I hardened his heart so I could give him makkos.
Right.
It's a child's game over here. The Dev explains it so beautifully. Gimmel if we didn't have these 3 makkos happen, we would be missing a few stories that never happened, and therefore these words, these esaysai, these letters never would have been written in Torah. And if they wouldn't be written in Torah, then the sparks that are connected to those words would never be refined, because if it's not written in Torah, you can't refine it. Okay. So the Eibishter would be missing something. The Eibishter wanted to take all of the sparks out of Mitzrayim. And in order to do that, those sparks need to be written into the Torah. How did the Eibishter write them into the Torah? By bringing another 3 makkos on Mitzrayim. So how do you read the pasuk now? What is the Eibishter saying? Boyel Pare, because I have some sparks in Mitzrayim that I need to get out of there. I have my ACS, I have my sparks in Mitzrayim that I need to get out of there, and therefore there will be another 3 makkos so that could be written in Torah, and now you could elevate them and refine them. So the Eibishter is begging and pleading. There's sparks of Kedusha left in Mitzrayim. Please help me through these words in the Torah, and like this we'll be able to completely take out all of the Nitzitzis from Mitzrayim. Therefore, it was an absolute necessity to bring 3 more makkos upon the Mitzrayim, in order to insert them into the ACS and into the combinations of letters that are in the Torah, so that they can be elevated and be brought back to Kedusha. V'hinei, and Rebbe makes something very clear by clarifying his point. Rebbe, let's see how it works. V'hinei, even though in the Torah of the Maggid, the Rebbe is basing his Torah based on the Torah of the Maggid. So even though in the Torah of the Maggid, what does he say? He doesn't say klippus. He says the dvan b'telim of Pari and Mitzrayim. So he's not talking about the lowest levels of klippas of mamish, lumas of mamish, klippa and sitrachru. The klippas dvarim betelim ain't a klippa atachtenu beyeser. The klippa of dvarim betelim, even though it's taka klippa, but it's not the lowest type of klippa. Like the Alter Rebbe explains in Tanya, that in the clip of Dvarim B'Telem, a person doesn't enclose his seichel. His intellectual faculties aren't trapped and aren't captured in Dvarim B'Telem. So it's not the lowest clip. Nevertheless, says the Rebbe, a pasuk can never be taken, removed from its literal and simple understanding. Upashtas akas b'laman shisi say ela b'kibe kayel Gimmel hamakas and esapes shevi akadosh baruch Hu pari v'amitzayim kipshuta. The simple understanding of the pasuk is that what are we talking about? We're talking here about the three makas that the Eibishter brought to whom? To Pari literally, and to Mitzrayim literally. Which through these three makas, the nitzitzis, the sparks of kedusha, of holiness, that fell in Mitzrayim, which was the lowest clipper, the lowest place, were refined. And on Pari, the king of Mitzrayim, the makas were brought upon. Who he is Hatanim Hagadol. So I saw two different translations of Hatanim Hagadol.
A serpent.
Or a serpent, or it says in the Metzudas David teaches a fish that looks like a serpent.
Okay.
So I think most people understand that to be a crocodile. And so one translation teaches it simply a monster.
Whatever that means.
Whatever that means.
Right.
Oh, but I'll call upon him. Let's call it a crocodile. It works. So the great crocodile, Hatanim Hagadol, the great crocodile, Harevitz B'Seichi Erev, that that rests and that hides out inside his river. Asher Amar, and this crocodile says, Li Erev Ani Yasisan. This is Lashon HaPasuk, that he says that the river belongs to me and I'm the one who created it. Like we discussed earlier in the Maimon, this is the lowest level of klippah. Okay, so this is one point. From the Torah of the Maggid, you could think that what are we talking about? We're talking about an Aveda of dealing with Dvarim B'Telem. In other words, that we're not talking about Klippah Mamish, that we're not talking about evil literally, that we're talking about things that are in Torah so that we could serve the Eibishter through the things that are in the Torah, the letters and the sparks that are in the Torah. But the Rebbe takes the Pirush of the Maggid and the Rebbe applies it to the literal story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. And the literal story of Yetzias Mitzrayim was discussing literal and actual Klippah, Pari and Mitzrayim, literal and actual Klippah. So the first thing is that we have to know that the reason why we have these Klippahs is Laman Shisi in order so that we could elevate and redeem the sparks of Kedusha that are inside them. Then the Rebbe adds a whole other dimension. It was these three makis, they brought about that later, after the three makis occurred, that now Pare sent the nation out, he let them go, let them leave Mitzrayim. In other words, that the three makis are also part of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's not just a story of three makis in which we refine the sparks that are stuck in Mitzrayim, but it's a story of Yetzias Mitzrayim. It says like this: like it's explained at length in the Dibra Maskal V'B'Shalach Pari of the Tzemach Tzedek. The Pare Hayom Shaleach Pe'eris V'Anofim V'Isapri L'Mayla Sa'am. So I didn't have a chance to look in the Maimer, but it sounds to me, I believe that this is what the Maimer means. If I'm mistaken, my apologies. It sounds like what we're saying is that Pare was growing branches and fruit, and this was all why L'Mayla Sa'am. Whatever Pare was creating, in other words, all of the might, all of the wealth of Mitzrayim, the branches and the fruits that Pare was growing was in order so that L'Maylas Ha'am, so that the Yidden could have an aliyah that the Yidden can reach higher. This is what it says, Gabi Golos Mitzrayim Uzrati Li Ba'aretz, that I will plant them in the ground. Golos Mitzrayim is compared to planting a seed or a kernel in the ground. Why does somebody take a kernel and dig it into the ground and cover it and bury it in the ground? People go through all the trouble of digging a hole and irrigating the land and planting the seeds in the ground. Why do they go through all that trouble? And not only they go through all the trouble, but they waste all of their seeds. They had a bunch of seeds, and now they get lost. They get buried in the ground where they get ruined. The reason is obviously, the reason why a person does it is in order that he should be able to harvest and reap from this a much larger quantity than what he planted in the first place. If you couldn't reap, if you couldn't gain more out of the planting, then you wouldn't do it. Right? It's this guy Tzion from the bakery who passed away.
When? Yeah. Oh, that was not too long ago, right?
Not too long ago.
Oh, okay.
So he told me once in his bakery, he said like this. He said it's a joke, but it makes the point.
Yeah.
He said that there was once somebody in the marketplace. He would buy eggs for 50 cents a piece, boil them up, and he would sell them for 50 cents a piece.
No profit.
No profit.
He lost.
Of course he was, because he spent money on gas too. Go ahead.
So somebody asked him, I don't understand. What are you doing? What are you doing? You start off, with 10 eggs, 12 eggs, a dozen, and you end off with 12 eggs. You're right back to where you started. You didn't make anything. So he says, yeah, but now I have the water. Right? In order to boil the eggs, you have to put them in water in the pot.
No.
So when he finishes, he has the water left. When he bought the eggs, he didn't have the water.
Yeah.
Don't try to understand it. It doesn't make sense.
No, it makes no sense.
It makes no sense. But the point is that you don't do things if they don't get you anywhere. There's no gain, if there's no profit, you don't expend resources and energy and time on something that won't give you more than what you had. If you're going to end up back in the same place, then just stay where you are and you'll be doing just fine.
Einstein said, what's the definition of sanity? Do the same thing over again, expect different results.
Yeah, it's a good word. Al Kopanim, the Nekuda is that's what Chazal compare, that's what the Pasuk calls Golus Mitzrayim. The Pasuk calls Mitzrayim planting. It's the same idea, it's the same concept of planting. And Chazal explained that what's the idea conceptually, what's the philosophical idea of planting, that a person takes one amount, he expends it, it gets used, so that he should get much more. So the whole idea of the Yidden descending into Mitzrayim and being trapped over there in Galus and suffering in Galus wasn't so they should later come back and be the same free people that they were before they ever went into Mitzrayim, but rather that they should come out much larger, much greater, and much stronger than they were when they went in. Through this, that the Yidden went into Galus, into exile in Mitzrayim. Garmu, they caused that the nitzitzis, the sparks of kedusha, that fell into Mitzrayim through the process of shviras hakelim that's explained in Kabbalah. Shem nitzitzis gvein b'yeser, which these sparks are very high sparks. So through going into Mitzrayim, we take them out, as it's explained at length in the Maimer, or in the Ma'amor.
So in order to have kerach, to be able to take them out, that's one of the reasons why I have to be in the Torah.
Good. So we have 2 points. What we learned so far is 2 points. One point is that I'm not sure which one to start. We'll start with the other ones. We'll start with the one that Deb starts with. The first point is that in order to be able, like you said, in order to be able to change, to transform bad into good, or in the lashon of the second paragraph that we read, in order to bring elevate the nitzitzis, to refine the nitzitzis, so it has to be written in Torah. Otherwise, it would be impossible. Because by the fact that it's written in Torah, so this means that what's its true existence or the source of its existence? The source of its existence is Torah. So now we could change it. So that's one point that we learned. And the second point that we learned is that this is not um, a sideshow. It's not something that we do once we have to deal with klippus. So we'll go and use the kerech of Torah, the fact that it's written in Torah, to elevate it. No, that's not the story at all. The only way that we could reach higher, the only way that we could redeem the highest sparks of kedusha is davke by going down into Mitzrayim, by descending into Galus, into exile, and having to do with klippus. Only through that can we bring back to the Eibishter the highest levels of kedusha that fell into klippah. So now we have a new picture, a full picture of how a person is supposed to view all of the challenges and difficulties that he has in serving the Eibishter. Without this beer that the Rebbe gave, how does he view it? He views it as, I'm not so good. Why am I challenged with all of these clippers? Because I'm interested in them. Because I like, the various pleasures of this world. And unfortunately, I'm not a good person. And that's why I'm challenged by all these things. If only I was better. If only I was a tzaddik. Or if only the Yidden didn't do all of those averas that caused the Churban Beis HaMikdash. Or if only those Rishonim, those evil people, weren't so terrible, so bad, so wicked. If only they weren't so pervasive. If only the world didn't turn so crazy in the past few decades, where we have to deal with craziness that's beyond belief. Tell somebody, you look at the biggest clippers. You look at Obama, for example. In 2008, when he was running for president, what did he say? That he's against Mishkav Zchur. Yeah, that he opposes gay marriage.
Yes.
Could you imagine that that's what was going on in 2008, where the world has come to now? We've moved so far beyond questioning if gay marriage is moral or ethical. The leader, the clip of this, the mamish, the Tanim Hagadol himself, a clip like Obama, I don't know if existed in I don't know how long. The amount of tzaris that he caused, and the amount of danger that he caused for Eretz Yisrael. I mean, Iran is now, Rahman al-Islam, on the brink of producing a nuclear weapon. And anybody who understands the psychology and the theology of the Iranian government understands that they will not hesitate to use the nuclear weapon. All of the other nuclear countries aren't extremists, don't believe, let's put it this way, as much as Iran does. So therefore, they're afraid of using the nuclear weapons because they understand that they are going to be annihilated and that's going to be the end of them. So there's no benefit in doing it. Iran is different.
Okay.
The theocracy over there believes that they are fighting a holy war and that they are right, and that therefore, no matter what they do, the Eibishter will help them. And therefore, they won't hesitate to use nuclear weapons because they're sure that they're unstoppable and that nobody could stop them. And the only reason why they were able to reach so close, where they're mamish now on the brink of doing it, is because Obama gave them, he literally assisted them in doing it. So he brought in Klippus in that way. And just the spirit of Klippa and Yeshus that he brought into America, and America is the leading power of the world, it's indescribable. It's indescribable. If you try to catalog the changes in American culture that he brought about, it's beyond. I mean, Obamacare is a nothing. That's one of the least offensive and damaging things that he did. And this Klippa himself, just in 2008, when he was running, said he opposes gay marriage. And look where we're holding today. Not even 2 decades later, a decade and a half later, and we've gone beyond that. Leaps and bounds beyond that. And you wonder to yourself, why do I have to deal with all of this? Why do my kids have to deal with all of this?
Clip is lesser for us.
Huh?
It's Clippers last hurrah.
It's Klippa's last hurrah. True. But just because it's the Clippers' last hurrah doesn't explain why I have to deal with it.
No,
Why do I have to deal
Speak to
with it?
God, talk to him.
What's that?
Speak to God, talk to him.
Or learn a maimer. This is what the Rebbe is explaining to us. That we have to stop looking at it, that I'm not good. That the problem is that I'm a low person who's attracted to Clippus and Sitrachs, to the pleasures of the world. The problem isn't that the Yidden did Averis in the time of the Beis HaMikdash, and that's why now we're in trouble. The problem isn't that the world has gone crazy in an unbelievable way, and that's why there's so much ban and challenges. No, the story over here is a completely different story. There's nitzaitzis of Kedusha that are in all of these klippos, and they're crying and they're screaming and begging to be redeemed. And the only one who could redeem them is the Yid, by using his kerech of Torah, of dealing with it. And that's why it's so pervasive. That's why we're into it the whole day. That's the answer to the question that we posed in the beginning of the shir. Why do I have to find myself the whole day challenged by klippos? Right, Moshe, if the point was to prove that I'm going to listen to the Eibishter and not do the klippos, so it's enough to prove it once a week. They have to be there literally every second.
Yes, Rami Nurov.
Why does it have to be that way?
Talk to God.
Or learn the Maimer.
There we go.
It has to be that way because in this bad, there's actually the highest keches of Kedusha.
That's why.
And we have to take them out. We have to bring them back to Kedusha. And that's why we're dealing with it the whole day. So it's a whole other view. And it's a view that encourages. It's a view that gives strength and that gives, it lifts the spirits. When you see it that way, you understand that this is a whole other story.
Yeah.
It's a whole other story. You might want to compare it, for example, if there's a child who misbehaves, he knows no bounds, breaks every rule, you can't hold him down.
Right.
This is a father who's blessed, literally, with such a child. So he's two ways he could look at it. He could either go on Bimon and cry his tzaras.
Wow.
I have 10 kids and they all walk they walk the straight and narrow. They don't do anything. Over here, they used to have to give me a child. Why? Why do you have to be this way? And he could scream at him. But this parent there's no other word to call him other than a shaita. Because what's really going on over here is this parent was blessed with a child with energies that are so great that they're hard to contain.
Yes.
This kid is motivated, he's ambitious, he's bursting and bouncing with energy. And the father has to see, how can I teach him to harness his energies and to use them in the correct way?
The only problem is if a person wants to help himself.
That's okay. It's true. And that's
I
getting into the journey of people.
I can give you another plenty of examples for what they say.
That's true, and that touches on the mysterious journeys that the Eibishter puts each one of us on that we'll never understand.
No.
When Mashiach will
No.
come, maybe we'll understand them. But it's like I went horseback riding recently. And
Wintertime?
what's that? I was in Costa Rica for a chasanas over there. It's warm weather. Yeah.
I know what's going on.
So I went horseback riding. So with my kids, we took all the kids.
The first time in your life?
No, I went before.
They have saddles, obviously.
They have saddles. Yeah. It's not so old.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Yeah. So the horse that the guide was riding,
Was a little bit wild.
was what? Was kicking his foot and blowing from his nostrils, making moving his head. He was itching to get going.
Right.
He was itching to get going. When you go to, in the olden days, these days everything is already so so institutionalized. So everything was put through a process and managed. Everything is so managed in such a nice way. With his wild stallions. Right. When in the olden days, if somebody had to get himself a horse, so there was the farmer and there was the horse racer. The farmer would look at the horses. He would see which horse is calm, which horse listens, and that's those are the horses that you talk to use on your farm. But if you wanted a racehorse, a horse that can do what nobody else could do, you went and you found the horse that is the most dangerous horse, that's kicking and neighing and literally risking your life
Yes.
just to approach it is scary.
No
Just to
question.
approach it is scary.
Yes.
That's the horse that you pick out and you say, oh, this is the one that's going to win the race. This is the one that's going to stand out from all the others.
Interesting.
So it's the same thing with a child. You see a child like that, you understand. This child is that racehorse.
Right.
And it's my job to teach it to take a harness, to teach it when to run and when to
The
listen,
problem
to
is,
stay safe,
the
etc.
problem is certain systems don't know how to deal with it.
Do you really blame them? I mean, are we
I-
all
I-
smart
I-
enough?
I'm
Are
not,
we all, are we all
I'm
smart?
not blaming them. I'm just saying a fact.
It's definitely a fact. It's definitely a fact that there's a lot.
This kid that comes here every night now, he's kicked out all the talk 10 times.
It's
15-year-old boy.
it's very hard. It's very, very hard. The Abishter, in addition to the challenges that the Abishter gave those children, the Abishter also gave each one of those challenges.
No question
And nobody
about
is
it.
exempt from those challenges, and
No
we don't
question
always
about
know.
it. No question
But up
about
here we're discussing what it should be. What's the ideal? What we should try
it.
to
Yeah,
strive to.
okay.
So it's the same thing. It's the same thing when we see all of these clippers, when we see all of these challenges. The greater the challenge is, the more despicable and disgusting it is, the more miserable it makes us feel, the more we know that over here lies very high netzitzis. Over here is my opportunity. This might be the reason why my neshama came down here into this world, just to take care of these sparks. And that's why this
Do you mind
happened.
if I tell you a story?
Hang on, we'll finish in a second, then you'll tell me.
Thank you.
Val Pihanal, we'll read a few lines from the next thing because it really leads into it. Val Pihanal Yuvon Gam Hashekol Echad Vechad Misol Tzarich Levarer Gam Hanitzeitzes Shnofta Lamata B'Yeser. Why every single yid has to also refine the sparks that fell very low. Ukamuvon Gam Hashekol Adman Azokin, and really this is all included in the Vart of the Alter Rebbe that we mentioned when we first started this moment. What's my job? Sometimes we get so confused. Listen, this is your job. To create a dwelling place for the Eibstein Tachtenim, in the very lowest realms, literally mamish, which in this is included also the lowest of the low, in other words, the worst and the most sickest of klippas. The lechura in a movement, seemingly it's not understood. What does the Eibster want from me? But Isa Bezeir, it says in the Zayel Pasuk Baal Pare, the Aile Kutchabrichu, we'll learn this slower next week. The Aile Kutchabrichu Moshe Adin Nifnima Adin. The Eibster took Moshe Rabbeinu room, he brought him one chamber into another, chamber after chamber, closer and closer, until he reached Legabi Tanina Chada Ilo Takifa, he reached a very great and strong and mighty and awesome crocodile, we'll call him, or monster. Moshe Dachel Mine, the Lekariv. Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid. He went back. He wouldn't approach it.
Right.
Even the Chama Kutchabrichu, the Dachel Moshe, when the Eibishter saw that Moshe Rabbeinu was afraid of it and couldn't approach it, Amar Kutchabrichu, the Eibishter said, Hineni Alecha Pari Melech Mitzrayim, Matan Magodol Revis B'Sech Yerev. I'll take care of the problem. And the Eibishter himself had to do battle against this klippa. And since Moshe Rabbeinu was fearful of this klippa, the Eibishter agreed. He said, I understand you, Moshe Rabbeinu. I get you. You're right for fearing this thing. So the Rebbe asks, Hey, ach, shayach, lidrish, min kol echad vechad mi Yisrael, levarer gamen et tzeitzes shnofel lamata mata adin tachlis. What does the Eibishter want from us?
We get the Moshe Rabbeinu inside of us.
What does the Eibishter want from us? Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't do it. And here the Eibishter is putting us in front of these nisyenis, these tests, these challenges day after day.
Yes.
Why? Why, Eibishter? What do you expect? What do you want?
Yep. Okay. Shkeach.
Let's hear the story.
Stories like this. I'll take one. Okay, it says.